I saw this style of card on HSN, actually before HSN aired last Wednesday. Anna Griffin was showing how to, or she was selling a set of a card making kit that was based on this design, and she had a whole bunch of nice embellishments and all. But I decided that I'd like to try to make a similar card. She had a couple, hers were made using the metal dies, and I don't use metal dies very often. I have plenty of them, but I much prefer using my cutters, so I decided I'd go ahead and see if I could make a similar card. Her windows had different shapes depending on which die you selected. So I just selected a die that I have, not a die, but a frame that I've used before. I posted in the chat the links to the YouTube tutorial on how I made this frame from a tilde shape. And also I posted a set of the ornate nested frames, this design here that I used, and I put the link there so you can get that file if you want to. What I did was just choose a couple of these. I don't remember which two, maybe these two, and then join them, and then resize them to the size that I needed it to be. Now you can use any frame that you want. My first one, I just used an oval just to practice to see how this would work. So you can use any frame. You can search the gallery or use any frame that you happen to have in your collection and size it to 3 by 4.5. And I'll show you how I went about making this card and how you can make your own card, flip card, so that it will have the frame that you want. Now you could put in the center here, you can put a sentiment. There are extra pieces that you can, the scraps actually, this piece right here is a leftover piece from the cut, and this piece that I glued on here is left over from the cut. When the card's closed, these two frames are concentric, meaning this frame's a little smaller than this one and it fits inside. And then you can put a larger piece on the back of this side that flips. And I use just one-sided printed paper, so I needed to put some decorations on the back. So we'll get started with how to make what I call a flip card. Susan calls hers in and out. They have different names through the years. This particular one is more like a gatefold card, meaning that when it's closed, this one layers over this section. So that makes it a little different than ones I've made before. So we'll get started with a new page on this file. The first thing I'm going to do is add a square from Basic Shapes. So I click on Basic Shapes and double click on the square. And I'm going to change to the green screen so you can see what I'm doing. The square got added way out here because that's where my carrot was. So whenever you add a shape, it will go where your carrot is. I want to resize this non-proportionally. So I want the width to be 12 inches and the height to be 5 inches. You can make yours whatever you want, and I press enter. I also want to line it up with this corner up here, and this happens to be 0, 0. Press it enter. That will allow me to use my grid lines to line up my score lines that I'm going to add to this. Now I'm going to add another one of these. I think Control Shift and drag and just resize it to 5 inches square because I need it just for placement a little bit later. I'm going to put snapping on at ½ inch because it helps me to draw straight lines for the score lines, and I'm going to click down at the bottom on the larger of the 2 green plus icons to add a new layer for the score lines. Because this is the basic card before I do any folding. So to add score lines, I'm going to click on the figure 8 in the upper left corner to open this node editing toolbar. I like to make my lines with the pen tool, but you could use the pencil if you wanted to. Now the left-hand piece is 5 inches, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is where I want to put my first score. Left click here, and then right click here. I don't drag, I just click. Left click to start and right click to end. The next one I want at the 8.5 point line. Left click and right click. And the next one I want at 9.5, and this will be the little zigzag portion. Left hand, right hand. Makes a little Z fold in here. Now I'm going to change those lines to score lines by clicking on the color icon and then line style, and make my spacing between my lines the way I like it. So now I have score lines to work with. This will help me place my frame where I want it to be. So I'm assuming that you've already made or selected your frame. I'm going to just copy it from a previous page and then go to this new page here and add a new layer, and then Control Shift V pastes in my frame. Now let me check the size on it. I want it to be 3 inches by 4.5 inches. So this will be the frame. It's important that your frame be symmetrical on this because it's flipping forward and back. And I found out that my nested ornate frames were not exactly symmetrical. So I had to kind of edit it a little bit to make it right. But this one is symmetrical now, ready to use. And I'm going to turn off the snap position, no snapping. And what I want to do is position this so that its points are right on this fold line. And I found out through playing with this that you need to be pretty precise in positioning your frame, otherwise they won't line up and close right. So I'm going to click the frame and hold Shift and then click the card to select both, and I'm going to type H to horizontally align it right in the center of the card. Now for the other side, I don't have a score line to line it up to, so I'm going to use that extra square that I made and make sure that it's lined up in the corner. I'm going to just put the X and Y at 0 just to make sure. Oops, I did it wrong. I'm going to make the X 0 and the Y 0 and press enter so that it's perfectly in the corner. And I need another one of these frames, the same frame. I'll click it to select it and use Control Shift and click to get another one. And I'm going to, with this selected, hold a Shift and select that square I made and type S to stack it perfectly in the middle. Since it's stacked perfectly, I can get rid of this green box here. Now I don't need it. I think I'll just delete it. So I have my frames positioned, and in the process of making this card, I'm going to use up those frames, and I would like copies. So I'm just going to click this, hold Shift, and click this one, and then hold Control Shift, click to drag me off copies, because these will make good embellishments for after the card is done. So do we have any questions so far?
No questions so far.
Okay, good. Now the next thing I need to do is cut away portions of these frames, and we're going to leave part of it and cut away. And this was it took a little experimenting, but to do that, we're going to use the node editing tool, which is the second tool on the left toolbar. So the first frame I'll work on is this one over here. I'm going to get rid of this outside line here. So to get rid of that outside line but still keep the inside, I'm going to just delete a portion right near the top of the outside line. Just select it with this selection arrow and hit the delete key. Then I'm going to do the same at the bottom. Now that'll allow me to select this line after I break it. On this side, I want to keep the outside line, but I want to get rid of the inside line. So I just broke it there. On this side over here, I want to keep all of the center line, but I want to get rid of this outside line here and this one here. And I want to keep the rest of those lines. What I'm going to do now is select this and break it so that now I can select those individual pieces that I don't want. So I don't need this piece. I'm going to delete it. And I don't need the inside piece. Let's see if I can find it. It doesn't want to let me select it. Sometimes that it gets in the back. So I'm going to send this to the top and then move it to the bottom. Now I can get this one. I don't want the inside piece, so I'm going to delete that. Now if this piece, I don't need the score lines because this is really going to be the piece that flips front to back. So the only part of it that I need of this score line is just down to this line right here. So what I'm going to do is select, just hover my cursor right over that score line and double click right where I want it to end to add a node. And I want it to end here and double click there. Now I can select the center part of that line and just hit delete and get rid of it. Looks like there's a line, but I don't think there is. Now on this score line, I want it to go all the way to the edge of this cut design, but it doesn't need to go through that flip part either. So I'll double click here and I'll double click here. But make sure you have that line selected. It turns color red when you've got it. So I'll double click there. So now I can select the middle and delete it. So now I have score lines here. I should have, yeah, I have score lines here and here, but they're at the bottom. That's why I can't see it. And now I'll come over here to work on these. I need to do the same here, and that is select these parts of the design and break them so that I can edit pieces. So I'm going to send them to the top so they'd be easier to work with in case they weren't at the top. But I want to keep the outside line and the inside line, but I don't need this outside line. So I'm going to select it and delete it. Now this piece here, before I join it to the card, because this is going to be an opening or a frame, I'm going to make a copy of that solid shape. Control Shift and click. I'm going to drag it over here. Click on this to select it, and then click on the card. I don't want to join them yet. What I want to do now is make a copy of this line, because there's a piece here I'm going to cut out, but I actually don't want to get rid of it. I want to make a copy of it. So I'm going to select this one and use Control Shift and click and send that to its own layer at the top by clicking on the smaller of the two green plus icons in the lower right corner. So I'm going to hide that piece because I'm going to need it a little later. Meanwhile, I want to connect this piece to the top, and I can't really very well connect it if it's not broken. So I'm going to double click this. I'll right click and convert to a line to make it straight again. Same with this, convert to a line. And I want to do the same down here. Double click, and I like to break the node here, and right click and break node there, and then select the card and break it all. What this has done is it's made this end piece all a piece of its own. And again, I'm going to use Control Shift and click, send that to its own layer and hide it, because it's going to be a piece that I want to use later. Meanwhile, I want to connect, let's see, I still have a line here. I'm going to go ahead and use my pen tool to connect. And I think I should hide this over here. I'm going to send that to the top and hide it so it's not in the way. Use my pen tool and left click here and right click here. Left click, right click. If those pieces aren't straight, I can straighten them by just clicking on the bottom of the line and then just moving it over. So this is, it's not very straight there. I need to right click and convert to line if I want it to be perfectly straight. Helps to zoom in a little. Convert to line. And now I've got a decorative piece that will fit perfectly on my card once I get it all cut out, but I don't need it for the card itself. So I'm going to send that to its own layer and hide it. Now I'm going to get back my card piece and this piece. So I should have, if I click on the pen tool, I can see where the lines are. And what I want to do now is fix this card so that now the bottom edge is connecting to the frame. So I'm going to left click. I think maybe what I'll do is right click, make it, convert it to a line, and right click on the end and join to closest node with line. And it made a straight line. And just put it where I want it. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I want to select a line, right click and convert to line. Then right click, join to closest node with line. And again, I'm going to straighten that out, I think. So now I have this edge of the card, and I would like to move this card now to the bottom. I'll move it to the top first so I can find it, and then right click and move the layer down so that I can grab this piece here, hold the shift key, grab the card and join. So now I have this cutout window and these pieces are ready to go. I'm going to hide the score lines though so I don't accidentally get them. But I would like to zoom out a little bit and grab these lines, hold a shift and the card and join so that they don't move around. And what that'll do is create the flip part of the card. So now I'm going to just get rid of the empty layers, and I can't see my trash can. Let's see. You can get rid of empty layers by either clicking on the trash can. I guess I've already gotten rid of them. So now I have some different pieces that I can use to decorate. I've got this piece, maybe I'll color it purple so we can see it. I'll change this to contrast. And this will actually decorate, I'll flip it when I have it folded. This will decorate this part of the card. And it leaves a piece showing here. And then I have these frames. I'll send it forward and maybe make it a different color. So I have one to put on this side. And I have a frame that I can put on the back side there if I want it. The other thing that I have is a solid piece, because as this piece flips, go back to the picture, this piece flips, the back side needs to have some color, and it was just white from the back of my cardstock. So I saved this little piece that came out of here to use as a tag right here in the center where you can put a sentiment. Let's see, we could make that maybe a lighter color. And then the back of this piece is actually big. So I have this, I'll hold Control Shift and drag, and I'll use blackout on it. So now I have another piece for the back of the flipping part, and that gives me, it covers the whole back of that flipped piece. So it creates a very interesting card, because as it closes, the one part shows, and when it's open the other part shows. That's why it's called a flip card. I left this is actually the back side of the paper, the white part, but it made a nice white frame. Then I put another white frame around it to go with it. So to fold it, you just make a mountain fold here, fold it towards the center. This one has the same center fold, but then it folds, this part stays out. So I posted the links in your chat in case you want to see a tutorial on how to assemble and fold a card like this. And also, no, it was actually just a link to my video on how I made this, in case you want to follow those steps again with a different frame. And then I sent you a link for my set of nested frames. So your assignment is to make a flip card with a different frame of your choice. Cut it out and take a picture of it and show us your work.